This is Harvard on the Map, presented by the Harvard Graduate School of Design, covering innovative ideas and thought leaders in digital cartography, Earth observation, and all things geospatial, with your host, Jennifer Horowitz.
Welcome to Harvard on the Map. I'm here with Todd Simon, and thank you for coming on the program.
Jenny, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to join you for the program.
So Todd is the co-founder and principal of Geospatial Alpha, which is a geospatial VC firm, which I find incredibly unique, and I was also very grateful this summer to be his intern, and I'm really excited to have him on the program. You're coming from Palo Alto, from your home?
That's right. Yes.
Great. So let's get started. So how did you first become interested in the geospatial arena?
Yeah, sure. So let me first say thank you for having me on the show. I'm really enjoying seeing the backdrop of, the Charles River. I grew up in Massachusetts. Most of my family's still in Massachusetts. Went to undergrad in Massachusetts. And this is the best time of year to be in Massachusetts, in my opinion, given the fall. So it's nice to virtually be back in Massachusetts. So thank you for that. So I guess, how did I first become interested in this geospatial arena? For me, it goes back really almost several years ago. My first exposure to something related to geospatial was handset technology. So the GPS technology that is essentially embedded in handsets, mobile phones. And I became fascinated by the potential for handset location data to tell us more about human movement, about lifestyle, about understanding populations and patterns of life. And patterns of life became really sort of the words that resonated most with me. And perhaps was that starting point, the meaningful part of the starting point. And I felt there was so much more knowledge that could be derived from understanding location, proximity, meaning spatial relationships, context, environment. So that was back in, 2013, 2014. And then it was really as an employee of Ground Truth, a startup company, and then as a board member with Greavy Analytics, that I was able to get fairly deep into the tech and very deep into the data science. And that was, I think, really the moment when I could really appreciate or begin to appreciate the potency and the complexity of geospatial data.
Interesting. I've known you for a bit now, but I've actually never heard that. So that's really interesting.
You never put me on a radio show before, so this is the
didn't have one before.
That's true.
So another question I've never asked, but have always been curious about. So how did Geospatial Alpha come to be?
Yeah, so there was sort of a pretty meaningful step before launching Geospatial Alpha, and it I guess started when I was a board member at Greavy Analytics in, say, 2016. And I just started to jot down some trends or notes about trends. And they were I was seeing an increasing, as a lot of people were, an increasing proliferation of Earth observation satellites. Certainly more resolution, more cadence, things like that. But just the volume was growing at an increasing trajectory. And then the second was some maturation in IoT. And then the third was really also related to IoT there was more talk about smart edge devices. So IoT prior to that was distribution, getting a lot of terrestrial distribution of devices that were capturing things, sensors that were capturing things, but they weren't smart. And then the last was machine learning, software, algorithm building, data sets was becoming more widely accessible. And to me, all those trends I felt were secular. They were going to play out for an extended period of time. And it all pointed in the direction of an explosion in the volume of geoquotiented data and the ability to divine intelligence from it. So that to me meant, or at least I was starting to feel that there was going to be a great environment for startups in what I was calling geospatial intelligence. Not GeoInt from a military intelligence standpoint, but just exactly what those words connote. And so I put together a pitch deck in 2016. I just opened up PowerPoint and started typing in bullets, and then ran around Sand Hill Road in Menlo Park and telling VCs and frankly, anybody who would listen to me, that they should commit resources to investing in startups in geospatial intelligence. And then in 2017, I joined one of those VCs on Sand Hill. They're headquartered in London, and I joined as a venture partner to focus on geospatial. And for them at that time, that meant mainly transportation and logistics startups. So that was the first time someone said, I think there is something here. In fact, many of the folks that I talked to at the time said, wow, you're really talking about, the pejorative I heard was, the worst pejorative was a hobby, that geospatial is a hobby area. Terrible, terrible pejorative. The more positive, still a pejorative, was that it's a lens for seeing the world or seeing phenomena, but not a function unto itself or a discipline unto itself or whatever. So, and certainly not a VC area worthy of dedicated resources. But to his credit, Steve Schlenker, the co-founder of DN Capital, said, no, I get it. And I have a great deal of respect for Steve, and was glad he, did come to that conclusion. So in 2019, when we formed Geospatial Alpha, it was with the support and advice of Steve, and also Deepak Kamra, general partner at Canaan Partners, who has been one of the leading investors in space and actually altitude-derived geospatial data. So, not just low Earth orbit satellites, but balloons and other things. So, at that moment, we didn't know exactly what business lines we wanted to eventually develop at Geospatial Alpha, but we knew that we wanted to build the authority in geospatial intelligence. Or be building the authority in geospatial intelligence, that there's not we'll get there and then we're done, but it just continues and continues. And so everything we did going forward needed to align with that mantra. And so we started with a consulting practice to big institutions like the European Space Agency, and to investors from venture capital to private equity. And then we did perhaps the most important thing we could do and are doing now, and that is to launch a mentorship program. We had a really good pipeline of companies that I was seeing in my perch at DN Capital, which is a Series A investment platform. And those companies were too early. There was 1 or 2 founders, maybe 5 people, but they were more angel and seed. And I just wanted to be involved and help them, and wanted to find ways to be for them to find value in what we did. So our first mentorship was a spin up from Oxford University, and has gone on to great success. And we can always point to Orbital Witness as the first mentee on our platform.
Interesting. Huh. Fascinating. Didn't know that. So what have been some of the major challenges faced by the companies that the Geospatial Alpha mentors?
Yeah. I don't know if I can say that there's sort of a common challenge or a single challenge, or even common denominators to, the plethora of challenges that they face. But, and that really is how we organize the mentoring, which is each mentorship is oriented around the specific needs of the mentee and their company. And, it can be highly technical, or it can be centered on, market strategy or investor strategy. And it changes over time during the course of the mentorship. And we draw on the resources of our, team of 6, and also our extended network of experts in the geospatial arena. So, yeah, I don't know if there may be some common forms, but I don't think I can point to one. If I'm thinking about commonality, I point to a common interest or enthusiasm in the opportunity or potency of geospatial data. And maybe that's more of an attraction for us to them than the other way around. But an example is, maybe one of our early startups, a Singapore startup, the co-founder there, Nidhi Gupta, she was and is building a model to predict container volumes at seaports. And they were mainly at the time when we first met using econometric data, GDP, tariffs, things like that. And she was curious about the possibility of Earth observation data to track containers on land, ships on the sea. And so our role initially as a mentor was to help evaluate, can we count shipping containers accurately? Is the technology supportive of that? These are container volumes, containers exiting, manufacturing choke points in China or somewhere else and heading to a seaport. Huge impact on volumes over time. And specifically using satellite sensors. That's what we were evaluating. And then second, can we use AIS data, automatic identification system data, coupled with weather data to forecast arrival times at seaports? Again, big impact to predicting container volumes around the globe. And so that was how we began. But then more recently, we were asked to focus a little differently on opening doors with partners and folks that could be early customers for them. And so we just very recently got them traction with Maersk. Maersk is the world's largest shipping company. So our role kind of changes over time. There's usually something highly technical in there, though, at some point, usually early. So our mentorship program, began in 2019 with our first mentee, Orbital Witness, and we now have 8 mentees who are all quite diverse. Again, I struggle with a common denominator theme, but and they're very diverse or distributed around the globe. And part of that was intentional, and part of that was just where we were seeing really great companies. So we have 2 mentees in the UK, and then one in Singapore, one in Israel, one in India, one in Luxembourg, one in Switzerland, and we're onboarding our 8th, which is based in Kenya, our first one from the African continent. I'm still going with this theme of common denominators, I guess. So when I think of common denominators, it's a really good point. Because it starts to tell you more about us. One is, again, that enthusiasm for the potency of geospatial data and intelligence. And I think the second, and this is, I think, a really important one for me, is that the companies are all in the process of building great know-how, developing great intellectual capital, which gives the companies inordinate potential that can play out over many, many years. So essentially, they are building something that is, yes, differentiated, and also durable and sustainable. And that's really, really important, I think. And so as we think about future candidates for our mentorship program, we consider the potency of geospatial, we consider about the development of durable intellectual capital. And we also naturally look to areas that have, we think have great potential, like edge computing, which again, when we started, was in a nascent form. Weather and climate change analytics, that's beginning to really accelerate. Our India startup is focused on that. And then quantum computing, quantum technologies, to name a few. Yeah.
So I guess the takeaway then is that there isn't a major challenge, but you get sort of different requests, just given how diverse the pool of mentees are. You just get a sort of a diverse sort of set of issues. It's interesting.
Yeah, and I just, when I think about, so the company we're onboarding in Kenya, they actually have some expertise in an area that is their current business model. But what they really need to do is to figure out what their business should be in the future. So it's, it's a little bit odd. It's like, we can't even tell them that we can be necessarily helpful with in what areas for a company that is focused on A or B or C. But we do believe that their geospatial expertise can play out in a lot of different ways. And at this point in time, there haven't been many companies on the African continent that have maybe the ambition to be world class. And we saw this kind of play out in India over a decade ago, where startups are basically providing outsourced services or are Me Too's to what's happening, say, in the US. We saw that in Europe as well. It's not that they're bad business models or bad business ideas. It's just that they're not sort of oriented to being world class. And so we're onboarding this Kenya startup with that ambition to help them figure out what they can do that can be world class, and that will take some time.
That's fascinating. Well, I have more questions, but I know that you're a busy guy. I don't want to overwhelm you, so
Hey.
I'll move on to the next one. So, what are the key takeaways from the recent Geospatial Alpha webinar, which I had the pleasure of listening in on when it happened a couple of months ago, I think. The webinar was on quantum technologies and geospatial intelligence. I wonder what your takeaways were from that.
Yeah, well, for us, it was really extraordinary to commit the time, and you were very much involved in it, and your contribution was really valuable. And I can tell you that we basically said, okay, quantum, it's going to be a big deal. We see intersections. Let's commit a lot of time to learning and contributing to learning for others. So, right now, the computing space, the quantum computing space, is very much about custom solutions and unique algorithm building. And we're now beginning to see a number of quantum software companies create platforms for onboarding and enabling selection and access to various hardware offerings. And that's kind of a step in the right direction of making quantum more accessible to companies, people that want to build in the space. I think what happens that's really exciting is that over the next 5 or 6 years, we surveyed a number of people, and they say that they think that a lot of the natural complexities that limit the accessibility are going to be abstracted away, and you'll get to a place that's much more like Java-like code, so that massive numbers of people with familiarity with a particular platform or coding apparatus can participate. So it won't be just about quantum people, quantum physics people, there aren't really a lot of quantum algorithm building people out there right now. So anyway, the idea that something like that will happen in the next 5 or 6 years is near term for us, I think. The second is that quantum sensors are actually already here and already are, have applications and are producing revenue, in surveillance, 3D imaging, detecting and ranging objects. And just in the automotive space, there are applications in vehicle-to-vehicle communication, positioning and navigation, cybersecurity, LiDAR with high precision range finding. So the sensor part of quantum is already happening, and we really weren't aware of that, to be honest. And then the third is that there are a number of fundamental quantum computing methods like combinatorial optimization that have a natural fit in resolving hard geospatial problems. So in the particular event that we were talking about earlier, a woman from NASA, Sri Janay, gave a really good presentation on autonomous agents. She wears actually 2 hats, one in NASA and one with Neuro. And so she could speak about autonomous agents in the context of robotic fleets of delivery vans or satellites within a constellation. And for the latter, the constellation of satellites, the problem, that's, I think a good example is scheduling payload operations across a large constellation. Where you're collecting Earth observation data against a lot of constraints, power, orbital mechanics. There's limitations to what you can do in the context of an orbit or moving away from an orbit. Subsystem control, articulating the actual collection system, the actual sensor, the actual optical element. Communication commands from one satellite to the next. Can they talk to each other to say, hey, I just saw something really cool. Make sure when you come through, you check it out as well. You might have 5 seconds before the next satellite comes through. And so you've got to act quickly. And then just fundamentally downlink bandwidth and speed. So a lot of constraints. And with the goal of maximizing the overall science value. It might not be science, but it might be some other value. That to me is pretty amazing. And that speaks to quantum solving hard geospatial problems. If I could toss out a fourth, and this is kind of like in the somewhat future looking, just as we've been speaking with experts in both in quantum sensors and also those folks in quantum computing, we talked to a few folks with expertise in both. In particular, a woman, Rochelle Cox of L3 Harris. We can expect in the future whole new problem-solving capabilities once you're able to combine the improved resolution of quantum sensors, position, timing, actual visual resolution, with combinations of computing of classical and quantum. Right now, they are being commingled to produce better computing results. But when you can combine the three of them, or say differently, when you combine the computing on top of those sensors that are producing, again, just more data, better data, there's going to be a whole new set of problem-solving capabilities. We don't even know the problem. The problems exist, but we can't even say, oh yeah, this is the problem that it's going to solve. So that, to me, that fourth thing is pretty cool. And another sort of reason why we should be dedicating resources to this area.
Very interesting. I'm very interested in the maritime take on it. Especially my grandpa was in the Navy, and we're kind of a Navy family. And I wrote an article about the sort of the intersection between geospatial and maritime. But it is really interesting, especially L3 Harris doing some really incredible work around geolocational stuff. So fascinating to hear you talk about it. And so finally, I end off all of my interviews with the same question, which is to describe a time where you were lost, and whether that's geographically, physically, or whether that was metaphorical in your life or your career, and how you found your way back.
Yeah, and well, so I'm glad actually this is one question you gave me the heads up for, because I probably would have just stammered through it or something, and I wrestled with, oh, maybe I'll give some sort of deep answer, or maybe I'll just talk about the time I was effectively lost at the top of a volcano, which sounds good, but I just climbed down from the volcano. I mean, so it's like, but no. Yeah, I think I'll go with the former, something a little more deep. And it's, I had, from a career standpoint, put myself on a track to be an investment banker, going, somewhat back in time. And I began with work in finance, went to business school in New York, and then worked as an M&A banker for a bulge bracket bank. And that was, boom, that was my plan. And then the market crashed. And for so many people, they, like myself, we had to kind of figure out what next. And for me, and I think this is true, a lot of other people I talk to, you naturally think of adjacencies. Like, okay, I'm good at this, so I should be looking at this, something that's, a close cousin, so to speak. And which I think is very limiting to anybody, that, has, a range of potential values, a range of potential skills and aptitudes and whatnot. So for me, it was actually difficult to break that mindset. And it took a change of location. I mean, I moved from New York to California. And it, California is very different from New York. And it exposed me to a lot of ideas, a lot of creativity. And, it enabled me to find something special that really gets me excited every day. And so I guess going back to your question, the lost part was resolved in part geographically by moving from New York to California. And I'd say it's not so much a way back, but it was a way forward. And, so I'm glad I moved to California. I have a lot of friends in New York. I still love New York. I obviously love Massachusetts. I miss Massachusetts. But, for me to advance in so many ways, I needed a change of, physical location.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense. Interesting to hear. Well, Todd, thank you for coming on the program. And you by far have the best Zoom background of anyone I've interviewed on this program. So you win.
Thank you. Anybody would like copies of the turkey, selling them. No, I'm kidding. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It was a good time. Thank you.